Hello everyone, James here. So it's been just over a week since TFNation 2024 wrapped up, and I thought, well, it's about time I did a whole video. The plan was that this wasn't actually the video I was going to put out. I was going to wait a little while longer and do a much longer one, because I wasn't just in England for TFNation. I had been in York for the last few days leading into it. So I was going to do a much longer video talking about my adventures in York, what I saw and did, and then, everything covering TFNation. Of course, that video would take forever to edit. I am not a video editor, and we would be waiting at least a month to 2 months for that. So, yeah, there's no way I was going to let you wait that long, much less me. So I thought, in the meantime, I would at least cover what I got from TFNation, because everyone else is doing those videos, and it's good to be among the crowd, so yeah. So I'm going to cover some of the artwork that I got first, and then we're going to move on to the figures. So some of the artwork that I got from TFNation I bought at the convention, and others were ones that I brought with me for a few of the guests to sign. You'll see what I mean in a moment. First up is artwork from Mr. Nick Roach, his Lost Light crew. I actually got this from Nick at the start of 2018. I had just moved home from Australia. He was in Belfast for I think Comic-Con convention or something like that. He happened to be selling some artwork. I got the records from him, and I also got the Lost Light crew. 6.5 years later, I finally get James Roberts to sign it. So yeah, I think I waited long enough between signings. Next up is another bit of Nick Roach artwork that I got from him last year. His Terran and Autobot artwork, which he signed for me along the bottom. And you can't really see her signature on it all that well. I'm actually having trouble finding it right now. Where is it? Yeah, so after searching, because I am blind and I cannot see to save my life, I got Nick Roach to sign it last year, and as you can now see, because the light's reflecting on it, I got Twitch's voice actress, Kathleen Kavari, to sign it as well. Note to self, it's probably a good idea to check these things before you start videoing them. So yeah, I got Kathleen Kavari to sign this, and I was very appreciative of it. She was just so nice. And she was doing some artwork for some of the other shows that she was on, including Paranormal Park. I am still so pissed that show was cancelled. I see you, Netflix. Finally, onto the artwork I brought with me was a bit of artwork from Mr. Jack Lawrence. This was one I got from him in, I think, 2019. But of course, it's the Fall of Cybertron Dinobots. He signed it for me at the very top. And right in the middle, as you can see reflecting on the light there, is the signature from one Mr. Greg Berger. Yep, the King of the Dinobots himself signed this, and I am so happy. I absolutely love the Fall of Cybertron Dinobots. I mean, look at those designs. How can you not love that? So the plan is to reframe all of these pictures and get them back up, because some of these I haven't had in the room for at least a year or two, and I badly want to get that sorted. So there we go. One of the last pieces of artwork I brought with me was something I got last year from Joe. This was the Crosshairs Productions postcard, and I got as many members of the Acsensionverse crew to sign this as I could. Of course, in spite of meeting him for the first time last year, Kej, I forgot to get his signature, so this year I finally corrected that mistake. Speaking of Kej, this year saw the debut of the brand new Transformers Shattered Glass film from Joe and the entire Acsensionverse crew. And I gotta say, I really enjoyed it. They actually were giving out two things. The first of them were sweet posters for this thing. I mean, look at it. Look at it. How does that not look fantastic? So we've got the various different characters, and much like the postcard, as many members of the crew who worked on this, including voice actors, as many people as were there as possible, I got them to sign it. So we've got Sky, Joe, Kej, who have we got? We've got Joe. I'm sorry, I said Joe already. We've got Dan. I think Matt's in there somewhere. This was fantastic. I cannot wait to frame this. Finally, the other piece that they were giving away in promotion of the film were trading cards. There were ones for all the characters. You had Optimus, Megatron, Starscream, but of course, Kickstart. And Kickstart was really cool in the movie. We got various different battle stats and everything, and a little bio for them. So I asked Kej if he could sign this for me, and he did me one even better. He did me a little doodle of Kickstart. Things may have gone awry somewhere along the way, but honestly, I thought it was still really fun. It is absolutely fantastic to have a little bit of memorabilia like this, so I really appreciate everyone for helping me out. Next up is a piece of artwork I got Mr. David K to sign of Beast Wars Megatron. Now, I didn't find out until later that there was a different piece of Beast Wars Megatron artwork going around. There was one that showed him in his 3 different forms throughout the Beast Wars cartoon. If I had known that artwork was there, I would have gotten it, but I saw this from one of the stalls and it looked absolutely brilliant. So this is him blasting G1 Optimus, but again, it looked so cool. I simply just couldn't pass it up. And from the very same stall, there was also artwork from the same artist for TF Prime Optimus. And his name escapes me at the moment. Was it? I'm gonna have his name on screen here, so apologies that I've forgotten. But that is just fantastic. I mean, look at that. It is absolutely phenomenal whenever you see it up close like this. If ever there comes a day where I get the chance to meet Peter Cullen, I am definitely getting to sign this. Yeah, it's probably a good idea to take the plastic film off this because it reflects poorly in the light. So, that's all the artwork covered. Now to move on to the figures. So I got a few different figures on the Friday. I've never really done that before, but a few people were selling figures. I had been looking for some and, you know, they helped me out with that. One of the first figures that I got was actually from a lucky bag draw. Joe was holding one, or Joe Boyd from the group, and he was holding this little draw, and he says, reach into the bag and pull out a figure. If you like it, you'll keep it. If you don't like it, donate it to Toy Foo. So I thought, hey, that sounds perfect. So I reach into the bag and feel what seems like a flat surface with a raised edge along in the middle of it, and I think, I don't know what this is. I feel like I should. And then it becomes very clear what I got. Bumblebee Movie Studio Series Optimus. This was the last figure I was expecting, but oh my god, is this thing cool. Not only that, I had been wanting to do a custom with one of these figures for a while. The irony is I'd sold off a second figure I bought a while back, so finally I have the chance to potentially fulfill that custom. It has a few minor paint apps on it. We've got the legs, the arms, and there's a little bit on the back. I'm not in the least bit worried about that because this thing is still a fantastic figure, so thank you so much, Joe, for this. Up next is a figure that I have been looking to make a custom with for a while, and this is courtesy of John from the group. Also Bumblebee Movie Studio Series Ratchet. I only recently got the Ironhide version of this mold, and this is a much nicer mold than I had been expecting. I don't know why I waited so long to start messing around with it, but unfortunately on this one the legs and the hips are a little loose. I'm not too worried about that because I'm actually after the head for this custom, but if I ever decide to keep this figure around, I'm definitely, it won't take much to fix up the legs and the thighs, but otherwise, yeah, this is still a solid little figure. Next up is a figure courtesy of Matt from the team, and it was Generations Crosscut, the Thrilling 30 version. I absolutely adore this mold. I know some of its engineering isn't great, and it does have a few posability issues, but honestly, ever since I had the Skids mold, I really like this figure, and especially especially after watching a lot of the TFI creation stuff, I always just thought of Crosscut for the collection, so finally to have one is great. It has a few stickers on it, and there are a few extra paint apps, but honestly, this figure is fantastic, so Matt, thank you so much for this. And last of the Friday figures were 2 of the same, which I had been wanting to get more of for so long, and they are 2 of the Transformers Prime Jet Vehicons. Somebody was selling these on Facebook Marketplace among the groups, and I just had to go for it. One of them was already sold, or at least it was on hold So I said, I'll take the other one. He messaged back to say that whole thing has fallen through. Do you want both of them? And I thought, yeah, why not? So I absolutely adore the Vacon figures. As a quick side note, the regular mainline Prime Vacon, how is it that just the Army Builder figure is also one of the best figures from the entire Prime toy line? How does that happen? But I only just got the Jet Vacon in the last few years after the Prime 10th anniversary Jet Vacon and Breakdown 2-pack, so I definitely wanted more of these. And even better, if you take the blasters from the regular Vacons, I'd say you get a pretty sweet blaster combo out of it. So yeah. And I have to say, it is really good to get more of these figures. I remember whenever I got into the trading hall, the APC Toys stand had a few of the Jet Vacons, including some of the Silver General or Seeker variants. But honestly, I'm just so happy to get finally these figures back. I do have a shelf now where I have sort of like my army builders, so I've got like the Vacon cars, I've got the Vacon jets now, and I have the Siege Brunt figures, so sort of like the heavy artillery. I've got a few Seeker molds in there, but honestly, it is fantastic to add more ranks to that. So yeah, or more figures to the ranks, excuse me. So yeah, this was fantastic. You may remember in my 2023 video covering TFNation that year, I said this about Acid Storm. It's probably the last of the Seekers I'll get for a little while because I have quite a few as it is, and Acid Storm just feels like the right, way to cap that off. Yeah, I may have been wrong. I didn't pick this one up at TFNation, I'll at least say that. This I got in the last month or so leading into the convention. But now I'm very happy. I have 2 of the 3 Rainmakers that I was wanting. I know a lot of people have been going for the 3-pack. I remember seeing people who bought it. But for me, whenever I look at that 3-pack, I think, well, I want Acid Storm probably because he's the most famous of the 3. Nova Storm looks pretty sweet, and I'll definitely consider painting up at some point. Ion Storm I never wanted to get because, well, it's just all blue. And we have a pretty blue Seeker of that mold already, Thundercracker, and does it fine. So Ion Storm was kind of just unnecessary, so I'm finally happy to add one more to the collection, and I swore I'm done. This is going to come back to bite me, isn't it? Yeah, I'm going to say all this now, and then a year from now I will say, ooh, turns out I got another one. Yeah. So those were all the figures that I got on the Friday. Now we move on to Saturday. So Saturday rolls around and I decide I'm not going to get into the early queue for the trading hall. I'm going to wait, I'm going to see the Shadow Glass film and then join the queue. Sounded like a good plan, except for one problem. The queue to join that queue ended at the bar. The furthest possible end of the hotel from the trading hall. So it was quite a wait to get in, and there were plenty of people in the trading hall. But I did have a good look around, and there was plenty to get. One of the first figures was Siege Optimus. A figure that I remember when this was first announced, I remember looking at it thinking, this thing looks so stupid. And in the years since, I am so happy I've changed my mind on that because this thing is fantastic. This is my second copy of the figure. The first one I got has a few stress marks in it. It has a giant stress mark through the windshield. It has a few joints that really could do with fixing. I didn't know that whenever I bought it. The seller didn't describe them in detail enough. So I'm really happy to get a second one here because this will not only go to help replacing that other figure, but then I also plan to do a custom down the line. So it's nice to have a spare that I can just do whatever on now. But again, it is absolutely fantastic to have another version of this guy in the collection. He is so cool. And the more I think of it, Earthrise Optimus might be getting a new head. So I have that to look forward to. Up next is a figure that was courtesy of Matt, who also gave me the crosscut figure. This one he just gave me as a freebie. Rise of the Beasts Beast Alliance RC. I had been talking about getting this figure for a while to do for a custom. Something about the proportions and her overall design I liked a lot more compared to the core class figure. And this version, if I can get it in the frame, this version Matt had done a little bit of customizing on. Nowadays he specializes a lot in like dyeing the plastic, and RC has gone through that treatment as well. So again, it is so really nice to have another RC in the collection. I did a giant purge of figures a while back, so the only version I have now is the Bumblebee Movie Studio Series version. So again, it is really nice to have another RC in the collection, so thank you so much, Matt, for that. Up next, Studio Series Concept Art Sunstreaker. This is one that I was curious about for a while. I know a lot of people among the group weren't really sure. A lot of people that sort of commented that they didn't like the design of it. Honestly, I really wanted to give it a shot, and so far I'm really liking it. Some of the articulation does feel somewhat limited. Now I say that in spite of the fact that it has probably a lot more range than you would ever possibly think. My whole thing is, I think if a figure doesn't have like a wrist articulation, something about it just feels more hindered than I think. But honestly, again, this figure is really, really nice. I especially love the vehicle mode. I'd almost gone into TFNation thinking I was going to buy 2 of them and do the second one up a side swipe. But for the time being, I'm really happy having one. I'll just, mess around with this figure and see what it's like before I go down that road. But honestly, this is a really nice little figure, and it's nice to have another bright yellow figure in the collection again, after just so many Bumblebees over the years. So yeah, really nice to have this one. Next is one entirely intended for a custom, and that's Fall Cybertron Jazz. Now for the record, I make no disputes about this. Fall Cybertron Jazz is not a good mold. I'm sorry, it's just the truth. The Sideswipe version doesn't fare any better, even though I owned that version previously. But somebody had done a few customs of Kickstart and Kickstart and Treadshot. Whoever had these figures out had them for the crew to hang out with and just mess with, and they had done the Kickstart from Jazz. So I looked at them and thought, you know what, I'm sure I can do something similar. So Jazz here is entirely intended for a custom. You know the best of it is, I say all this now, and there's going to be a brand new Studio Series Gamer Edition Jazz. It's going to be announced in like a week or something, and I'm going to bitterly regret this, aren't I? Tune in to TFNation 2025 so I can tell you all the details. Up next is a figure that I had never really thought about before. I'd seen quite a few people talking about it over the years. Sky had bought this one, I think last year, and they testified just how much they really like this. So I thought, you know what, I'll give this a go. Which is Reveal the Shield Wind Charger. And honestly, I am sorry I didn't pick this thing up sooner. This is a really nice little figure. You know, it has it has a really solid robot mode. It's red for the most part, so instant win in my book. It has a phenomenal little vehicle mode. I love muscle cars, and this is the perfect muscle car. And not only that, but then it fits right within that perfect sort of 2009 to late 2010 era of engineering from Transformers, when you have just really clever weapons storage. So the exhaust, yeah. Sorry, I wasn't sure if I was holding out the right way or not. So the little blaster folds away and the hand pops back out again. That is just really, really nice. If you can get it in the right way, both will come out at once. There we go. Yeah, if the hand rotates in a certain way. But honestly, it's just from that perfect little era of Transformers when you had small engineering things that just made for an overall better figure. Anytime I look at the cannons or the little blasters on this thing, all I can think about is Prime First Edition Cliff Jumper. That's how much I really like the art design on this thing. And not only that, the more I think of it, this is my first ever Wind Charger. I haven't done many figures of this little guy, so just really, really happy with this one. And honestly, I would recommend more people get this figure because it is fantastic. So I've got another Siege figure in the collection now. Technically Leader, although some would argue Voyager, Astro Train. This is the second ever Astro Train that I've owned. I've only ever owned the Classics Astro Train before this. So I looked at this and thought, you know what, I need this one in my collection. And this was kind of like a spur of the moment thing. I was looking around one of the stalls and I saw Astro Train sat there and thought, you know what, why not? 65 quid, which honestly, not that bad. He has his little tender and all of his various arsenal. Among that, I forget where I've put it. That also describes most of the figures here. Any weapons or accessories they have, if they're not holding them, I've misplaced them, so God knows where they are by now. But yeah, Astro Train I really like. He's big, he's beefy. The knees are, now granted he has his massive clumpers on, but his knees feel a little bit soft. I think there should be a little bit more tension in that, but now look into fixing that later down the road. Honestly, it is really nice having this figure in the collection now. The only thing I wish would have been better about this is if it was either a bit bigger or at least a little taller. I know there are a few like knockoff oversized figures out there. I've seen a few of them going around. If there was ever one of Astro Train, that would be really cool, because I think of all the figures out there, this one definitely would benefit the most from that height advantage. So yeah, it's really nice having this one part of the collection again. And more than anything, having a shuttle as part of the collection. I don't have many shuttles, funny enough. Plenty of jets. So this is another one that Sky testified to last year, and I thought my Lost Light collection is growing so much faster over the last while. I definitely need this one. Mastermind Creations Rung. I am just so happy to finally have this little guy as part of the collection. And I say little, this is probably one of the taller figures from the collection. All the rest of them are deluxes, but this one looks so small, you know, even as I'm holding it. I haven't transformed this one yet, funny enough, but I'm really looking forward to. And more than that, he just has such a nice little pose here. So yeah. So I mentioned earlier on that I got the Fall of Cybertron Dinobot artwork from Jack Lawrence and signed by Greg Berger. That wasn't the only Dinobot related thing I got at TFNation. Planet X Snarl? Yeah, Snarl. Not great when it takes you a second to remember the name. But I've been looking for a new version of this for a while now. I bought one a few years back. The person who sold it to me didn't tell me that it was damaged whenever they bought it. It broke even more whenever they had it. I then bought it and was left with all of the parts broken off, missing, or both, and wasn't told any of it to begin with. So I got a replacement version. Unfortunately, in the move home, one of his little spikes along the back is broken off. I wasn't too worried because it felt very sort of loose whenever I got it out. Fortunately, it broke during the way home. But because I have that other junker, I now have spare parts. Hopefully, I'll be able to glue this back together and maybe even swap out a few parts if need be. So, it's good to have a few options. Similar to Jazz from earlier on, I also plan to make a custom of Predaking. I have a few parts out in the shed at the moment. They're currently undergoing repainting, but I worried that a few of the parts may have been damaged at one point or another, or else I hadn't gotten the paint job right. So I got a little spare Predaking for down the road, and it's actually a good thing that I now have spare parts, because as I was looking at this thing, a few of the joints are very loose and everything, easily fixed. But as I looked at the back of the legs, I think the legs are badly misassembled, because you have these little pegs at the back that are meant to plug into the backs of the legs. So, you know, these dragon legs will form the heels and everything. And believe me, I've double checked that I haven't been doing this wrong. The legs are the wrong way around. Pretty sure anyway. Let me fold it up, but yeah, no, these are the wrong way around, because these should be facing the other way. So again, it's good to have spare parts for a custom. I never actually expected that part of it would be misassembled, but again, spare parts, that's all I was after. One of the last figures that I got on Saturday was a figure that I had, funny enough, been very eager to get after Thursday night. I'd arrived at the convention early, so on Thursday night I was hanging out with whoever was there at the bar at the time, and one of the other attendees was talking about how much they really liked the Trans Art Beast Wars figures that they have been putting out. And there weren't many of them that I was really looking forward, or there were none of them I was really looking for. I have a very limited number of Beast Wars characters. I'm not a big Beast Wars fan, so I'm not really going out of my way to find these characters. But he showed me one photo from Transart's collection, and I thought, oh no, I want this one now, don't I? Funny enough, it's also a character who appears in Earthspark, a version of the character that I was so hoping they'd make a figure of somewhere down the road. But I think this will do for now. Introducing Transart's Tarantulas. I am blown away with how nice this thing is. From what I gather, a lot of the Transart figures are effectively like slightly upscaled versions of the original Beast Wars figures. Obviously, you know, there is much greater engineering going on here, but this thing is absolutely fantastic. And honestly, I'm surprised I never heard of these guys sooner. If I have heard of them before, it's been a while and I've forgotten, but just look at this thing. This thing is fantastic. The best of it is, I didn't realize until afterwards, this thing has proper diecast in it. The feet are diecast, a lot of panels in the back are. I think, is that the chest? No, none of the chest is diecast. But again, so much more diecast in this than I was expecting, and it all looks fantastic. Slight problem. Spiders, I'm okay with. My mum is severely arachnophobic, so I'm hoping she won't find out about this. Let's just keep this between us. So that covers all the figures I got on Saturday. Sunday was kind of a weird one because I was really just looking around to see, you know, what was still there, what, if anything, was still on my wish list that I hadn't gotten yet. The best of it is, as TFNation has wrapped up and everything, anything that was on my wish list has been either much harder to find or I just couldn't find at the time. But as I went through the trading hall one last time, I thought, well, I'll at least give it a look and see what's here. Not only did I find something on my wish list, I found a few other potential custom projects. So, that's worth looking forward to. One of the first figures right off the bat from that morning was Studio Series 86 Blaster and Eject. I had been so looking forward to this figure for a while. I think I had what was its name? Unique Toys Sound Mixer? Or Sound Blaster? Was that its name? And while a solid figure, I remember seeing the Legacy Blaster and thought, that looks cool, but just something about the paint job I just don't like yet. And then we got the announcement for 86, and I thought, I'm going for it. And honestly, this thing is just so cool. I especially love the tape deck approach here. I know the Legacy version is probably a little bit cooler than this, but honestly, I just love the way they've done the paint and all on this. I might actually consider getting the Legacy version down the road and maybe swapping a few parts if I don't get around to customizing this. But again, honestly, this thing is fantastic and another great addition to the Lost Light crew. So there we go. Now, I had gotten a few figures from the Toy Fu stand. I forget which from this point, but I definitely remember which were the last two that I got from them. And this was both of these were from Sunday. Prime Deluxe Shadow Striker Bumblebee and Grimwing. Grimwing I'd wanted back in the collection for a while. I don't know what happened before. I have Darksteel, it's currently undergoing customizing. I had a Grimwing at one point and I have no idea what happened to him. I remember having him for a while and then just for whatever reason I didn't have one anymore. So God knows what happened during that. But this one was from the Toy Fu table for 15 quid. Unfortunately, I didn't realize until packing up later on Sunday night that he is missing one of his little, what would you call these? Like, was it green talon things from the chest? But I'm sure I'll find a spare part somewhere down the road. But again, honestly, great having this one back in the collection. And like I mentioned, Bumblebee here. I had gotten this one once before. I think it was whenever I was still living in Australia. I was passing a local shop and saw this one. Sky was looking for it. So I remember my aunt was visiting and she took this from Australia back to Northern Ireland and mailed it down south in Ireland for Sky to get. So it's nice to finally have one for myself. And I won't lie as well, this one I have gotten because of the synergy with the Shadow Glass film. I had wanted to do a custom Bumblebee for a while, but it's nice to get one that just speeds up the process. So only thing now is to give this one a giant scar, and this is Shadow Glass Bumblebee. Up next was a third-party figure that I've owned this mold before, but never as the 2-pack. It's Make Toys Cogwheel, or Gears. So this is the very first Gears I have part of my collection. I also own the Make Toys Trash Talk, which is their Swerve. Those two were part of a 2-pack way back when. I never owned both of them. So this one, I think, was going for about 15 or 20 pounds. And I saw it and thought, no, why not? Because, again, honestly, it's still a solid little figure and I really, really like it. Is that what is that? No, it doesn't. Yeah, note to self, if you see a clear piece on a hinge, it probably isn't intended to move. But yeah, it's nice to have this little guy part of the collection, and it's another addition to the Lost Light crew. Speaking of which, funny enough, from the same stall that I got Astro Train, one of the other figures clearly must have seared itself in my mind, and it's another Siege figure, Siege Red Alert. I've never owned a Red Alert before now, the more I think of it, so it's nice to have, you know, finally a character part of the collection, and you can notice a theme here. This is another Lost Light member added to the crew. I remember I was showing off the artwork that I got James Roberts and Nick Roach to sign, and by that point I didn't have Red Alert, so I said there are only 2 figures missing from that that I don't own, Red Alert and Pipes. So Red Alert I could finally tick off the list, and honestly I consider it done. Or at least that was the case until Sunday lunch. The grip went out for a bite to eat, and Dan arrived late, and he handed me a bag and he says, this is for you. So, very surprised, I have a look around, so I open it up and have a look. And what is inside it but Kingdom Pipes? A figure and a mold I have never thought about before, and yet somehow is really, really fun. I actually really like this thing. So the moment that I picked it up and I was just gawking over it, Dan says, congratulations, your Lost Light crew is now complete. And it took me a second to realise before it finally clicked, hey, he's right. Everyone who's in that piece of Lost Light artwork, I now have that lineup. My Lost Light collection has expanded a lot, over the years. And honestly, from this TFNation alone, the rank and file have just exploded. So it's nice to have another addition to the collection, and more than anything, just thank you so much, Dan. That was the last thing I was expecting from that point of the day, and it was really, really nice. Not only just getting a figure from any one part of the group, but one that had such a specific meaning. You know, whether it was for somebody who was getting or putting together a combiner, somebody who's putting together a very specific collection. As in my case, it was honestly completing my Lost Light collection. I'm sure down the road I'll say I've updated it to include someone, but for the time being, I can really say that the Lost Light is complete, so thank you. So I've gotten a lot of figures from this year, and much more from the third-party scene than I was ever expecting. And I have gotten a few more third-party things. I don't have them here. I've misplaced them somewhere, but I'm just gonna run them off and show you a photo. From the non-F Productions crew, I got, what all did I get? I got an upgrade kit. I got an upgrade kit for Legacy Windblade, which gave her a brand new sword and filler gaps or filler panels for her wings, which I have to say has been fantastic. I'm looking at that figure right now and it is just so cool looking. I also got a spoiler kit for Kingdom Sideswipe, and just seemingly a complete upgrade kit for Earthrise Sunstreaker, in which you get a spoiler, cannons, and some other little bits and pieces. There was so much more in that than I was ever expecting. So non-F, thank you so much for that. That was a big, big help. I also got the Perfect Effect Combiner upgrade kits. I got one for the white Battle Core Optimus, I believe. The plan is to get that figure back out of storage, and that is going to be my basis for Nexus Prime. So it's nice to have a lot more like bulk and armor for that. And then the other upgrade kit was for Combiner Wars Minosaur. I already own the hands and feet for that from that kit, so it was more for the torso, the sword extender, and the head. So that is going to be a big improvement. Last up that I got from TFNation was one that I have been hunting for such a while, but I was so happy to finally get. And that is the DNA upgrade kit for Studio Series Rise of the Beasts Optimus. Now, this is the same figure that I got from TFN last year, but finally he has a few extra components here. I haven't actually upgraded this thing fully yet. I don't have the new shoulders or any other components in, but I just want to show off some of the weapons. So we've got his blaster, which I do think looks kind of goofy, but honestly, seeing it like this is kind of cool, I'll say that. If anyone doesn't have this kit, the blaster that they include, they actually include 2 blasters in the kit, but they're the exact same piece. They're just molded the exact same way. So both arms, there are. This one is for his left arm. Yeah, this one's for the left arm. The other one will look the exact same. If I did that, it would look identical. So if you don't have this kit yet, just be aware of that. And over on this side, we also have his axe and sword. I just love the translucent orange that goes through both of them. The sword, it works so much better. The axe looks good, but the sword wears it much better. So that is everything that I got from TFN, only to get home and realize that I had ordered one more DNA Designs upgrade kit and had completely forgotten about it. And that is the DK53 Gearmaster upgrade kit. And this has parts for so many of the Autobot figures. We've got, what do we have? We have blasters for RC, we have a brand new battle mask, blades and a new blaster for Bumblebee, cannons and a brand new head for Wheeljack, aka Pablo, depending on which version you want to talk about, and a bunch of other little bits and pieces for Mirage. I think we got like leg fillers, brand new feet, and there's an extra blaster in their form. So the good news is I actually finally have a Mirage on the way. Apparently there were a few at sale at TFN. I wasn't in the trading hall early enough to get it. And depending on who you ask about it, potentially one of those figures was selling for 50 quid. Why is it one of the more controversial / not the best looking Rise of the Beast figure somehow ends up being one of the most sought after and most expensive? How did that happen? But yeah, no, I can't even find the words at this point. This year was a lot of fun. I actually went into TFN this year thinking this would be my last for a while. I still hold that belief slightly. It did take a lot of money to get to TFN this year, I won't lie. But just looking around, seeing everyone have so much fun, and getting to hang out with the crew again. The Joes, Sky, Dan, Matt, Kej, Ellie, Jack. So many people? It was so... Dan, jeez, sorry Dan, how could I forget that? Just getting to hang out with everyone again this year was just so much fun. Unfortunately, Julia wasn't able to make it this year, which was a shame, but again, everyone getting to hang out this year was just so much fun. And just even hanging out in the bar. One of my sort of goals for TFN this year was something similar to what I did last year. I wanted to be a little bit more sociable, just go around, chat to people. And I don't know what happened in the last year, but I became a lot more sociable. I still would talk to people, but I didn't feel like I was really required to go out of my way to talk to them. But this year I wanted to do something different. So anyone who was just hanging around, I went up, introduced myself, and just started chatting to them. And you see, by Sunday night in particular, that was one of the best things, because after the closing ceremony, so many people were leaving, others were going to be leaving first thing in the morning, Luckily enough, my flight didn't leave until about 11:30 on Monday morning, so that gave me a little bit more free time in the bar. So I just hung out with people, chatted away. Somebody brought their Siege, Omega Supreme, and Titan's Return Triptychon down, so they had them perched up on one of the tables. Those two figures are enormous, and they looked fantastic. So and even better, at the table next door, or at the table right next to that, David Kay was hanging out. And while he was there, down closer to the bar, you had all the comic book artists. Nick Roach in particular finished a piece of artwork for somebody nearby. And that's what I love the most about TFN, is that everyone is so nice, polite, and more than anything, everyone is really sociable. I know some people, may have issues trying to approach people, trying to be conversation starters and all. But for me, it's all about trying to get out there, meet brand new people, at the very least say hi, and know that, we're all there for the same reason. We're all there to hang out, to have fun, and enjoy Transformers, because we don't always get that chance. Many of us will go to other Comic-Cons here and there, or other just nerdy related meetups, but they're not always about Transformers. So it's nice to be able to have something like this where we can all meet up and enjoy the same thing, So yeah, I want to say that's my TFN 2024 video wrapped up. So I just want to thank everyone who was at TFNation this year, the Acsensionverse crew for letting me hang out and just have fun. To all the attendees, whether this was your first TFNation, your fourth like mine, or if you were one of the guests, just thank you, or guests of honor, thank you so much for being able to attend. And more than anyone else, the TFNation crew, whether you were part of the upper management, whether you were one of the volunteers helping out this year, thank you everyone so much. It has been great seeing so much positive feedback from this year's convention, and next year you're going to see me there again. So maybe next year will be my last for a little while. I know I want to do a little bit of travel around the place. I want to see Australia again. But TFNation 2025 is still on the books, so I will see you all then. Until then, thanks for watching, take care, and I will see you in the next one. 'Cause I've been living life right like